So, I don't know if anybody told you, but communication is complex. It's one of the causes of failed relationships and healthy relationships, whether that be platonic or romantic. And it involves verbal communication, nonverbal cues, cultural references, context clues, a lot of complexities when it comes to communication. Today we're going to focus mainly on our nonverbal communication, and we'll jump in right after today's intro.
You are excellence. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence. You amplify a voice of excellence. Your contribution to this world will be of excellence. You will achieve your highest goals and desires with excellence. Excellence in everything, every time.
Hey, family, I'm Lanita Hosting, your favorite communications coach. People know me as being a national edutainer traveling the country to do professional speaking. I've authored 3 books, and I'm really passionate about helping people who desire to have stronger relationships, helping them communicate better with those that they love and those that they lead. So, you know the drill. You are probably no stranger here. If you're watching live, you can go ahead and type in the comments. I am here. If it's your first time and you're a newbie, you can type in where you're watching from. I would love to know that. I'm really grateful that you're here today. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like or subscribe button. And if the information tonight is something that you think someone else that you may know might be interested in, I want you to forward it to them. So maybe they can join us on a Tuesday night. Don't be keeping all the goods to yourself. Share it with somebody. Share it with somebody. So you guys know we just finished our Stage Power series where we were talking about ways to show up boldly and with more confidence when you're speaking inside of a room. We touched on this a little bit inside of the Stage Power series about monitoring your body, what your body is communicating. And because I mentioned this earlier, communication is complex. We're responsible for so many things that are happening when we're verbally communicating. So there's been a recent update to the studies of research as it relates to communication. The theory used to be that 93% of what we communicate is actually nonverbal, and the remaining 7% is what we communicate in words. So the premise of that research stating that the emphasis when you're communicating with someone must be on what you're not saying because that is what a person hears. So recently they updated the statistics about that. A researcher updated it and said that it's actually 55% of what we communicate is nonverbal. Then there's a 20 something percentage that is verbal and a 7% that is the specific words that you're using. And so even though the data has changed about how people receive how we communicate, the emphasis is still on nonverbal. If you notice, I said the highest percentage was still 55% being nonverbal. I'm a nerd about this stuff, so I apologize in advance. Hey, Chanel, so glad that you're here again. It's good to see you again. So yeah, not 55% nonverbal. So listen, if you've ever had somebody tell you that they misconceive the things that you say when you feel like your words were very clear, if you ever had someone share with you that you come off intimidating and or maybe disinterested, like if how you feel and what you say is not able to be fully conveyed when you're communicating or in the presence of someone, that can be attributed to your body language. And today we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can improve how that might be showing up to other people. I want you to keep in mind that communication, a lot of it is perception. And someone else's perception is their reality. So while your intention may not be whatever they receive, that does not negate that the impact that you may have on them. So if there's intention, then there's impact. And there are some things that we cannot control, but there are a lot of things that we can. And part of that is being committed to wanting to improve your communication style, that you're doing it in excellence, not just doing it just because you have to, but you're doing it at your highest quality of effort. And so, all right, I want to jump in. I don't want to keep you long. Just want to jump in, give you your gems and get up out of here. Okay, so 3 ways. Let's jump into the first way. I want us to be very cognizant about our posture. And your posture is just the positioning of your body. I know this is very basic, but here's some common body languages that are negatively perceived. And you tell me if these ring a bell to you or if these are areas that you sometimes do. Tightly clenching your hands. So tightly clenching them, maybe like this. Fidgeting, whether that be like this or with your feet, or you know how sometimes when you have a nervous energy, your leg is like this. It's your way of coping with how your body is responding to the environment. But if you're talking to someone and are listening to what they're saying and your leg is doing this, that can be perceived, a little negatively. Dangling your head or slouching forward, so like this or like this. Anything that would give a person the perception that you're not interested, disengaged. Playing with your hair, that was negatively perceived. This is what people said. Having a defensive pose or posture. Defensive would be anything that puts a boundary between you and another person. So that could be the positioning of your legs. That could be the positioning of your arms. That could be your hands. So anything that puts a boundary between you and another person. So defensive posture. Appearing distracted. So maybe as you're talking to someone, you're on your phone or you're doing something else. You're not stopping to give them the totality of that attention. Those are some of the commonly perceived negative body languages. And I want you to write in the comments, do you sometimes, or have you been accused of, or are you aware of sometimes doing those things? Clenching your hands tightly when you're talking to someone. That also includes this. Sometimes when a person is trying to prove a point, they're very passionate about it. They'll be like this. They're not attempting to be aggressive, but it's just a defense, or it's a mechanism to draw emphasis. They're using their body to emphasize their point. And to them, that is not a negative thing. They're just really passionate about it, or it's very important to them. But again, communication is about perception. So this is actually a form of aggression. A closed fist in any capacity is a form of aggression. So being cognizant about that. Fidgeting, dangling your head forward or back. Anything other than straight chest. So have you been accused, or have you sometimes struggled with displaying or not displaying these things? Shonda said, yes, clenching hands. Yeah. And if you sometimes wrestle with anxiety, sometimes that's your way of coping. It's like, this is your way of trying to, but that's you. Remember, intention versus impact. And Alice says, yes, ma'am, I've been guilty. And I think we all have to some degree. And so I am calling or challenging you to be intentional about managing your posture. So that might mean you have to choose intentionally to put your hands, like have them open and rest them on your lap. That might mean you intentionally have to think, because a lot of this is body awareness. You have to think your shoulders squared, and because if you're clenching over or slouching, they can't be square. So are my shoulders square? Being very aware of that when you are communicating, when others are communicating with you. Also, is your head leveled high? Now, to be honest, these are you have to be, if it's a conversation that's high, that's driving emotion, if it's something that's challenging, or if it's something that you're struggling to convey, it's kind of hard to think about what your body is doing and the words that you're saying and or receiving. This is very hard. But if it were easy, we wouldn't be talking about it, because this is excellence in everything live. So I'm challenging you. If you clench your hands, rest them on your lap. If you tend to lean or do anything but stand up straight, I want you to think about your shoulders being square and your head being head level. So anything that means if your chin is dropped, that means if your chin is up, it should be head level. So even tone. Those are ways to monitor your body language, or manage them, I would say. And Chanel said, yes, intentionality. For sure. For sure. That's the definite goal. So I want you to think about this too. Can you practice also facial relaxation? And this is what this looks like. So right now, as I'm talking and smiling, my cheeks are activated, and the smile lines around my mouth, they're all activated. This is not a relaxed facial response. So if I relax my face, it'll look like this. And actually, when I do that, my shoulders relax too. So I want you to practice that, practice relaxing your face, because then you have a more awareness about what your facial expressions are doing. You won't know that until you know what it feels like to be in a relaxed state. So you want to start from neutral. So in your quiet time or wherever you do, if you're driving, just practice relaxing all of your facial muscles. So I have to stop talking to do it. So when I'm talking to someone, if I know what it feels like to have a relaxed face, then I can be more aware about are my cheeks rising because I'm smiling? Are my eyebrows going up because I'm curious or I'm offended? There's a different awareness that you have when you can identify a place of neutrality. I hope that's the correct way of saying it. So you have to relax your face. Facial expressions are so important because if you have what some people would call a resting face, meaning you've been accused of appearing nonchalant, disinterested, disengaged, but you're actually very happy, it just don't show up on your face. If you've been accused of being that way, and I don't think that there's something I don't think that there's something very I don't think that you can do anything other than be more conscious about what your face is doing. And if you have a resting face, then you should be very well aware of what a neutral face feels like. But if you're always smiling and or you are highly sensitive to other people's comments or commentary, or people say you wear your facial expressions on your face, then you for sure should practice being in a neutral state so that you can gain awareness. Now, remember, if your facial expressions don't match what you're saying, then the recipient of your communication can feel either distorted, confused. The purpose of communication is to provide clarity. So the two should be in alignment. Your verbal and nonverbal communication are interdependent. One does not function without the other. They are most powerful when together combined, they're in alignment. And so your facial expression should support what you're saying. So I'm trying to think of a very extreme example of having that kind of facial expression. Alan says, I look like I'm mad on Zoom calls and I've been practicing being intentional about smiling, but it is a struggle. I'm really not mad, but I just look that way. Yeah, that's pretty common. It's very common. Today I had a speaking engagement. I have a contract with a local library in Baltimore City. And they're doing a summer program for teens. There are about 25 teens that I'll be with for various days out of the summer. And y'all know y'all kids, y'all know how they show up. But there was this one girl, she came in today, no smile in sight. I smiled at her, asked her for her name. I engaged with her, no smile. She also sat in her chair like this. But do you know, when I finished today, she was the first person in line. She wanted to talk. She actually asked if I would be willing to be her mentor. She said that she learned a lot from today and she enjoyed the session. Now, her body didn't say that, but she gets a pass because she's not yet mature enough to monitor those things or manage them. There's not yet a very strong form of like body awareness. But us as adults, I would give us a little bit more. I got a little bit more expectation that we would make small changes, even though maybe you can't change. You don't want to be giving a disingenuous smile either, because that's not genuine. But trying your best to make those small changes, they are important. I want to mention this to you, and I've been talking about this. I am hosting Stage Power Intensive. It's a follow-up to what we've been doing. This is an in-person event here in Columbia, Maryland, that we'll be doing in August. Registration is officially open. Seating is limited to 15. And here's what we'll be doing in the Stage Power Intensive series. We're going to be practicing building your confidence to speak in a room. So you're actually going to practice. You're going to have exercises, group activities. You'll be broken off into your own section areas. You will be recording yourself, teaching you how to self-study your body language, your tone, and also structuring very brief messages. I didn't become a better speaker until I started speaking repeatedly. So some of our improvement happens through practice. And this event is for someone who has little or no experience in public speaking, but you desire to strengthen those skills, whether that be personally, professionally, or for your business or in ministry. I think that public speaking is a skill that we can't afford to leave underdeveloped. It's the easiest way to advocate for our needs. It's the easiest way to show up and advocate for our loved ones in their times of need. It's the easiest way to have the courage to ask for that raise or to speak up in staff meetings to display that you might be worthy for promotion. Every time that I think about an area of elevation in life, it's attached to being able to speak up. And that's a skill. It's like a muscle that we have to build. And so I'm excited to help people build that muscle this summer. The link, if you're interested in learning more about that, is workwithlanita.com. And you can grab more information about that at the website. Let's continue. Here's the third way. As we are improving our body language, I want us, and I should have made this, make healthy contact. It is so important that when you're communicating with someone that you have healthy eye contact. And that it could be an interpersonal communication, meaning you and one other person, or if you are speaking in a group or a large group, making eye contact with every person in the room. If you're speaking in a staff meeting, making eye contact with every person in the room. There's something about eye contact, healthy eye contact, and I'll distinguish the two in a second, but there's something about it that builds a level of trust and sincerity. So when I was training to be in a beauty pageant when I was in college, they taught us to scan the room. So they would say, make eye contact with everyone and slowly turn your head. But the goal is that everybody who's sitting in the crowd, they see that you see them and that they matter. It was like a connection strategy. So I use that now regardless of where I am. But the goal is to make eye contact with everyone. Most people ain't doing that. I'm going to tell you what most people do. They're going to make eye contact with the person that they know, because that's the person that they feel more comfortable having that eye contact or that moment with. That's almost like being in a room at a party and you only talk to one person and the rest of the people, you just, I don't really know them, so I'm going to just talk to that one person. It's the same thing. So your eyes, making eye contact is important. And when I say healthy eye contact, I would just say not eye contact that's not healthy is you staring like this. So yeah, you can be making eye contact and it could come off as aggressive. And it's how you're looking. And a lot of communication professionals say that your eye contact should be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not continual, but maybe you glance away, you look back, but not completely like a long stare. And I agree with that, but I'm curious to hear what you say. Do you think that you should maintain eye contact without breaking, or do you think that, sometimes you can look away and come back as long as you're not gone for too long? What do you think about that? Hey, Sherry. Sherry says, as an introvert, social interaction is difficult, especially when unexpected or planned. I definitely need to learn to lead with more open posture. Yeah, that's so good, Sherry. And you know what? I think you're referring to the student from this afternoon. She was definitely an introvert, and I do think that she was not expecting me there that day. She did say that. And so when to your point, when you haven't prepared yourself for a social interaction and you are introvert, that does kind of feel conflicting in the inside. Very good point. But to your point, to support it, I do think that perhaps if you're not good at being the socialite by way of your words, smiling is a good way, extending your hand, waving, doing things that are friendly gestures that would communicate to a person. Like, I'm open to talk, even if I'm not really talking to you, but a little like this, but something that would make a person feel like, okay, that you desire to be here. I think that would be the cheat code. Alan, okay, so this is Alan's answer. I think that you make eye contact long enough for the audience to feel as if they are seen, which makes them want to stay engaged. For sure. Absolutely, for sure. I think that being intentional about speaking in front of people is very challenging. And this is why I define it, or I identify it as being complex. If you think about it, you're thinking about what you're going to say. You're thinking about likely how they're responding to what you're saying. And you are having an awareness about your body. That does not include what's actually happening in the room. It could be loud. People could be laughing, shifting in their seats, walking around. There's a lot of awareness. It's a very complex management of self to be able to do the things we talk about in terms of public speaking or in communication in general. So I always say, give yourself grace. These things take time to practice to grow. They take time. And if you're only doing or practicing it or doing the skill once a week or every other week, once a month, then it's going to take more time. So give yourself grace for that. Grace for growth is what I'm going to say. Let's give ourselves grace for growth. So what do you think out of the 3 ways that we talked about today? Posture, facial relaxation, making eye contact. Which of the 3 do you feel like is an area that you can do a greater job in? Which of the 3? Facial relaxation, making eye contact, or managing your posture? Which of the 3 resonate best with you? Which one did you say, yep, that's one I can definitely do? I think that, and while you guys are typing those in, I'm going to share with you this one last thing before we hop off tonight. Oh, Chanel, I see your comment. I think it's okay to give eye contact, then look away, just enough for the people or person to feel acknowledged. In this moment, we can see and feel their body language as well, whether they are receptive to you or not. For sure. And if you have moments like I had today where it feels like a person is not listening, or they're guarded, or they're disinterested, don't assume that it's because of what you're saying. So many things could be happening inside of a person. I see this all the time. It's really easy to be offended by what a person is doing on the outside. But now that you're learning that it's actually a lot to manage that and think through your thoughts, you can extend grace. Sometimes people are not aware of what's happening with their body because they're too busy in their mind. And it sometimes has nothing to do with you. I remember I was in Kentucky. I was doing a keynote, and there was a guy in the crowd. His arms were folded the whole time, and he was sitting on his edges. It's almost like he wanted to challenge what I was saying. Like, what? I don't agree. But he came up and told me afterwards he was fighting back his tears. His body language was a response to him wanting to withhold that public expression of emotion. You really never know how a person is responding to what you're saying. So we can't make assumptions that we're not doing a good job, that we're not being clear, because you really don't know. So that's when you're on the speaking end. When you are speaking, okay, I'm going to rephrase that. That is when you are when you are speaking to other people. When someone is speaking to you and you all are having an interaction, now I'm giving you onus to actually having some awareness of those things. Chanel said, making healthy eye contact. This is something I'm trying to be intentional about. Yeah, and I don't know what it is, but there's sometimes people who are actually good at this, and I don't like this, by the way, but they use it as a form of it feels almost daunting to make eye contact with them because they're almost using it as a form of aggression. It's coming off as, let me rephrase that, as a form of assertiveness. And it comes off as dominating, if you get what I'm trying to say. Some people use it in that way. And I always give people kindness. You give me aggression, I'm going to give you kindness. You give me nasty, I'm going to give you kindness. Because at the end of the day, I have to answer to my own character despite how others show up. Good stuff. Tell me what you learned tonight. We talked about 3 ways to improve your body language and why that matters. Tell me, what was your biggest takeaway from tonight? I'm going to share this and while I wait for you guys. So on Sundays, I serve at my church on the youth ministry team, and I lead a group of youth leaders. And we have a chance, each of the leaders have a chance to give feedback to our kids about the topic that we talked about that day. There's this one leader on our team who is very passionate about the things that she shares. And her body language, if I could stand up, I would, and because I want to show you how important the body is. But then you won't see me because it's not positioned for me to stand. But there's one leg out. It's a very dramatic, aggressive stance, to be honest. And there's a lot of this to emphasize the point. Now, I know that her heart is in it, that she loves the kids. She just wants to drive the point home. I know that. But sometimes people who are the recipient of that information, they do not know that, especially people who are developing maturity like teens and children. So if you are known for, or a whole lot of like very abrupt, quick, very aggressive hand language, that's a part of your body language, and it's being associated with what you're communicating. So think about what it is that you're trying to communicate. Your body should almost mirror that. So if you are attempting to communicate with empathy, then don't do it with your arms closed. Don't do it with your head over top of your head or poor posture. If your attempt is to be empathetic, then maybe you lean forward. Maybe you rest your hand on a person. So your body should mirror what you're trying to communicate. They're interdependent. Remember that. Interdependent. So let me go in here and see what you guys had to say about today. Oh, thank you so much. Hey, tell me your name in the comments. I see Journey to Purpose podcast. You're so poised and amazing at communication, sis. I'm following you to learn how to better communicate on my podcast, doing my preaching assignments. Yes. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for you. Tell me more about your podcast. Biggest takeaway is give people grace, because sometimes their body language has nothing to do with, oh my goodness, yes. Yes, it has nothing to do with you. You could trigger them. You could bring up an old memory of a loved one who's no longer there. You could have said something that made them remember something that really makes their skin crawl. It could have nothing to do with you. You could have triggered the moment. But yes, never take that personal. And if you're curious when someone's body language is not responding in a way in which you were communicating something that didn't call for that, ask them. When it's over, say, hey, I noticed your involvement today. Was there anything on your mind, anything you wanted to share? Give them the opportunity to say it. They might say, you blew my mind away. I just didn't even know. I didn't even know if I was here or there. Anyway, you just don't know. Biggest takeaway from Alan is being aware of my body language and being intentional to fix it. Yes, having ownership. These are very mature communication skills. And you know what? I always say this, if you have children, everything that we model, we teach. So if you model aggression, you teach aggression. If you model the inability to manage your emotions and that's supplemented with your body language, you teaching that. So when you see behaviors in your children that you don't like, what was being modeled for them? So if you're modeling a good use of positive body language and you model good eye contact, you model mirroring your body with your words, you're teaching that. My biggest vision is that everything that I teach adults, they will go back and teach their children, because that's how we're going to make the impact with our kids. Ilana, that's the name. Hey, beautiful. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to have you. Thank you for stopping by. Alana's podcast is a Christian podcast to encourage women to pursue their God-given purpose and develop a deeper relationship with God. I need to be over there. I'm going to go and find you as soon as we're over with tonight's broadcast. But thank you again for joining, and I appreciate you stopping by and commenting. Awesome. If you decide to leave a comment, and after tonight's live stream is over, I will acknowledge it and I will respond. But thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Again, if you are interested in learning more about Stage Power Intensive, you can go over to workwithlanita.com. And I would be excited to have you at our event. And we're going to open up virtual seats. I just don't know when. So stay tuned. Anyway, I'll see you next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I love you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
You are excellent. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence. You amplify a voice of excellence. Your contribution to this world will be of excellence. You will achieve your highest goals and desires with excellence. Excellence in everything.